Well, it's just 2 days until the two main contenders for the US presidency go head-to-head in their first televised debate. Recent polls show Vice President Kamala Harris ahead of Republican candidate Donald Trump in most states.
But Ms. Harris's appeal seems to be reaching across the aisle and receiving backing from Republicans as well, with former Vice President Dick Cheney publicly stating he will be voting for her. Democratic strategist Naila Amaru says she doesn't expect many other Republicans to follow his lead.
Most Republican leaders remain very much aligned with the party's current base, which is very influenced by Trump, by his populism and by his, more conservative social values. So I don't think it's necessarily very likely. However, that's not to say that a few centrist or more establishment Republicans who are already disillusioned with the current base and the direction that the party is going into might consider making their support for Kamala Harris public as an indication of their unhappiness with the current state of the Republican Party.
Right. Now, recent polls, of course, show that most electors are in favor of the Harris-Walz partnership. But then you've got recent figures showing a soft labor market. And, of course, there are these fears of a possible recession. And that might sway voters away from a Biden 2.0 team.
There's a saying that we have here in American politics, it's the economy stupid. And so for better or for worse, economic conditions are very decisive in American elections. And regardless of what polls may have to say, again, polls are a snapshot. But a struggling labor market combined with fears of inflation or recession can absolutely make voters more cautious about sticking with an administration that they feel is representative of a lack of an economic recovery. And so those economic indicators here in America, such as employment, wage growth, inflation, they can be ammunition for the Republican Party, if they make the case successfully that the Biden-Harris team and now the Harris-Walz team are the ones responsible for the lack of an economic recovery.
Okay, well, this poor economic recovery is coming under President Biden's watch. I want to look at Harris's campaign slogan, which is a new way forward. Is that an indication that the Biden way was ineffective?
Not necessarily. I think that the economy is cyclical, right? And sometimes, depending on whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're on the winning side when the economy is up, and on the losing side when the economy is down. So I think that phrase in particular, a new way forward, is really an attempt to carve out Kamala Harris's own identity and her own vision. And positions her as this new forward-thinking leader that is capable of addressing these issues, such as the fear of a recession, such as leading an economic recovery, regardless of whether she is clearly part of the current administration. And I also think that the slogan offers her a chance to recognize the accomplishments of the Biden administration, while at the same time making it very clear to voters that she is prepared to tackle new challenges with different solutions.
Now, when Harris was anointed as the new Democratic presidential candidate, it invigorated the voter base. We saw more funds coming into the Democratic campaign. I wonder if senior Democrats are taking note of what a younger, more dynamic, plain-speaking candidate has done for the party and how that might actually be taken into consideration in future elections?
The short answer is time will tell. The longer, more nuanced answer is, I think that this is a very exciting election because Kamala Harris has, without question, broken fundraising records across every type of ideology of Democrats here in America, and in particular, Gen Z and millennials. And so I think that there's an opportunity here for the Democratic Party to revisit what are the issues that really drive and excite the younger voter base to the polls? And also, what is the type of candidate that speaks to that younger voter, that speaks to the Gen Zs, that speaks to the younger millennials? Because this is, fun fact, the first election where both Gen Zs and millennials will make the biggest voting block if we show up to vote, right? Of course, we have our 65, our seniors that show up consistently time and time again, which are concerned about different issues. So I think that this election will be very telling in terms of, will the two generations that make up the biggest voting bloc in fact turn out to vote and show their political muscle? And if they do, then politicians, the Democratic Party, will absolutely pay attention to what those issues are that interest that voting base and the type of candidates that speak to them.